What's up, y'all? This is Corey. If you're new here, welcome to the OverLook. We narrate the books you may have overlooked. Today, we will be starting our coverage on the 2016 Black Panther series by Ta-Nehesi Coates, Brian Stelfreeze, and Laura Martin. For context, the African nation of Wakanda is the most technologically advanced society on the globe. It sits upon a large deposit of an extremely rare natural resource called vibranium. Wakanda long boasted of having never been conquered, but recent events, a biblical flood by Namor that killed thousands, a coup orchestrated by Dr. Doom, an invasion by the villain Thanos, have humbled the kingdom. T'Challa recently spent some time away from the throne. His sister, Shuri, had been ruling as both Queen and Black Panther in his absence, but she died defending Wakanda against Thanos' army. The people of Wakanda are now restless, and T'Challa has once again returned to the throne. But now, he is the Orphan King. He is the king who defied the blood of his ancestors. The king who defied his country. The king who lost his way. The king who lost his soul. And now, he stands and watches as horror unfolds. At the Great Mound, T'Challa came there to praise the heart of his country, the vibranium miners, for he is their king, and he loves them as a father loves his child. But among his children, all he found was hate. And so, there is war. The king kneels, wounded, amidst the chaos. His guards, members of the Wakandan army, fire wildly into a crowd of charging miners. Their aggression is needed, but result in the miners becoming even more enthralled. They lift their pickaxes, shovels, create makeshift weapons, and use their overwhelming numbers to their advantage. They call for the death of the tyrants. This hate did not rise on its own. Deceivers are loose in the king's kingdom. And so, the hate spreads, consuming the body of the nation, dividing the king from his very blood. And now, they call him Haramu Fall, the Orphan King. But he has not forgotten his name. Damisa Sarki, the Panther. His name is his nature. The king can track a body through the wind and rain, for he tracks not the body, but the soul within. But the deceiver's scent has gone stale. Her power fades, and the king must call his soldiers back. The army cannot massacre their own people. No, the king must now reckon with what is loose in his country. Her hate fades, and they must now reckon with what they have done to their own blood. Elsewhere, within the Golden City, the capital of Wakanda, Io of the Dora Milaje attempts to reason with the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother must know there are no assassins among the Dora Milaje. The Dora Milaje are a nation. Their forces are drawn from all the tribes and forged into a singular emblem of the country. They are the blood alloy of Wakanda itself. None know this more than Anika, their captain, the Queen Mother's prisoner. Anika would die for the future of Wakanda. She would die for their king. She would die for their queen. But Wakanda is in chaos. Roads are infested with robberies. Farmers are cut down in their own fields. Villainy rules. Justice is a slave. The Queen Mother's daughter, Shuri, their queen, has vanished. Their returned king rules from a shaky throne. The house has fallen. No one is coming to save them, and so they must save themselves. The small device on Io's wrist, the Kimoyo band, tells the tale. The chieftain's outrage upon the girls of his village were known, yet his lechery was unstoppable. Anika spoke to him as fathers and brothers should have spoken before. And when she was not heeded, she did as the honor of Wakandan brothers has always demanded. Anika stood against the jackals who lay in wait, and for this, she is branded a murderer who must give her life. Io pleads to the Queen Mother to spare Anika from the bastard sanction of men whose honor is ostentation, whose justice is deceit. The Queen Mother refuses. They are the Dora Milaje, champions of their nation, celebrated in fables and songs. But now, Io stands before her, a shield maiden in peasant's clothes, pleading for some other standard. Io said it herself. Villainy overwhelms them. And her answer to this villainy is to turn the upholders of Wakandan law into its flouters. The Queen Mother refuses. The Dora Milaje are exemplars of their nation, and if they will not serve in life, they will serve in death. The Queen Mother takes no joy in doing her duty, but she will do it, even as others falter. For the life of her son, T'Challa's mother gave up her own life. For the life of his nation, T'Challa's father did the same. Ramonda, his father's second wife and widow, is as much his mother now as the mother who died for him. The king returns to the Golden City just as Io is escorted out of the palace. The king informs Ramonda of the happenings at the Great Mound. He appealed to the people to work, that in these times Wakanda needs them more than ever. However, the people did not hear the king. The people were listening to someone else. The king saw her, the one who drew out this hate. She turned the king's army against his own people. For fear of more lives lost, he let her go. But he will find her, and he will kill her for this. Ramonda, the Queen Mother, cannot help but wonder what good can come from more death. Today, Ramonda upheld the execution of one of their own adored ones. It was her duty, and she would do it again. But she is not blind to what this means. Wakanda is in strife. Invasion, flood, infiltration, regicide. The Queen Mother, however, sees some larger work in their troubles. They have had so much of them of late. Is the smoke not blinding them to the fire? The king instead focuses on the woman who drew out the hate in his people. The woman in green. She is the source. He saw the fire right there, in her eyes, right when she turned innocent men against their country. The Queen Mother warns the king not to lose himself. He is not a soldier, and it is not enough to be the sword. He must be the intelligence behind it. Meanwhile, around the Ngandan border region, the woman in green, Zenzi, recollects her previous encounter with the king. She saw an agony in the people at the Great Mound, an agony so complete that it eclipsed everything. Their duty to their country, their king, even each other. Agony over all. Humiliation, sadness, all agony. And then, under the agony, she saw something else. Rage. Zenzi looks up and sees a man standing before her, Tetu. And Tetu asks Zenzi if it was her who encouraged this rage. She admits that she did not. She only revealed to them, in all of their agony, their deeper, truer selves. She gave them a gift. She encouraged nothing, for she came to Wakanda not as an exhorter, but as a liberator. Tetu asks if the people of Wakanda still fear the Panther, if they still hate their Orphan King. Zenzi responds, the people have learned that there are greater agonies than the king's wrath. The Golden City was breached. Their children were drowned and burned, and the Panther could not shield them. The people do not hate their king. They are ashamed of him. But out of the rage shall come another Wakanda, and a better and brighter world. Elsewhere, Anika, the former leader of the Dora Milaje, is being held within the prison cells of Fort Han. Within her empty cell, she is left to her own devices. She spends her evening meditating and practicing her fighting techniques. It brings her peace of mind. But suddenly, Anika hears a rumbling in the distance, and then an explosion, and then the guards howling in terror. And then someone, a woman in blue armor, arrives with a scepter in hand. She uses the scepter as a weapon to blow a hole into the wall which separates her from Anika. Anika warns the woman to reconsider her actions, to not throw her whole life away. This small moment allows the prison guards time to regain their composure, lift their scepters, and target the woman with a combined energy attack. Anika pushes the woman in blue armor out of the way and takes the brunt of the attack, rendering her unconscious. The woman in the blue armor sees this and becomes enraged. She reveals herself to be Io, and Io uses her anger to fuel her clearing of the prison. Her skills and training learned from the Dora Milaje, paired with this new mysterious armor, proves to be too much for the underpowered prison guards. Then, when she's finished, she lifts up Anika and flies away, leaving the destruction behind. Later, Anika wakes up outside the Golden City, next to a roaring campfire, and Io explains that she tried to plead Anika's case to the Queen Mother, but the Queen Mother did not listen, so Io doesn't care if she's sentenced to death as well. They were going to kill both her and Anika anyway. When they condemned Anika, they condemned her as well. Moreover, a part of Io is already dead. The part of her that was Dora Milaje. The part of her that once lived for their king. Wakanda is falling. Not even the Panther can save them. Does the king even care? Did he ever care? Even then, does it matter? Has it ever mattered? Anika stands to her feet, walks over to, and examines Io's new armor. It is the new Midnight Angel prototype, and there's a second one lying right beside it. Anika tells Io that if they are going to die, she shall speak as her dead self, and they will act as dead women should. She is tired of living and dying on the blood right of one man. No one man should have that much power. Elsewhere, the king descends the stairs to the necropolis. He does not speak to the citizens. For them, he is nowhere to be found. Instead, the people of Wakanda hear the news of the protest at the Great Mound from those who would benefit from it. Instead, the king ventures to the city of the dead, burial site of the previous Black Panthers. The king removes himself from the world to a secret laboratory hidden away. The king works at his computer, running test after test, and every test is met with failure. How long must the king be divided from his own people, from his own country, from his own blood? And how long must the king be departed from his sister? The Taifa Ngao translates to the shield of the nation. It is the name given to the Wakandan Council of Tribal Elders. One elder, Hodari, holds up his Kamoyo band and an image emerges for all to see. He explains that it began with Killmonger's final act of treachery. The Ngandans were the key. Power was what Killmonger promised them. Power to crush Wakanda and bring all of Africa to its knees. And when it seemed Killmonger's genius had failed him, he blamed these same Ngandans. But it was not Killmonger's genius that failed him. It was his patience. Killmonger is dead. Still, his creation haunts Wakanda. It was this creation who twisted the miners at the Great Mound and angled them toward massacre. The king has tracked the strange woman in green to the frontier at the edges of the Wakandan border. He will go alone. The Queen Mother warns the king that if he should fall, Wakanda will undoubtedly rupture. Achille, leader of the Hatut Zereze, the secret police force of Wakanda, voices his concern as well. Achille reasons that if the Hatut Zereze were aiding the king at the Great Mound, the strange woman in green would have never gotten away. The king appreciates Achilles' concern, but this is not a fight that can be settled by mere arms. It was their very arms that they fell upon their people. The king states he will go alone because he's fought those who control the mind before. He is prepared where the soldiers are not. The blood of their people is on his hands. He will bring this woman to heal himself, and no psychic trick will save her. Elsewhere, on a Jambazi compound, safely hidden within a large tree in northern Wakanda, a mother prepares her daughter for the worst. She warns her, do not plead, do not cry, for their cries are but song to them. The daughter must be strong. They must live. She must live. Before the mother can finish her sentence, their captors walk through the door. The screams of the women fuel them. They grab the daughter and slam her on the cage, claiming that they will have their way. She pleads for her mother to save her. their captors cackle like jackals, for her cries are but song to them. When, out of nowhere, one of the midnight angels lands on top of the cage, she curses these men, these Mijinga, and uses her scepter to cut a hole so she can break through. The angel easily takes down the man holding the mother and uses her scepter to free the daughter from the other. They are nothing but vermin and vultures, feeding amidst the decay of their country. More of the captors arrive. They carry weapons. Their inexperience will be their downfall. The angel strikes one of the men and he stumbles off balance. She uses this to her advantage and lifts the man up and uses his body as a shield to protect her from the others. She then calls her scepter back and knocks out the others with ease. The Golden City may cower at their approach, but by the Orishas, the angel swears at it, Wakanda has not died yet. The Midnight Angel is joined by another, and the two quickly clear out the rest of the encampment. Shortly after, when all the women are freed, each of them take their turn thanking the angels, praising the goddesses, that the angels have delivered them. Praise be to their daughters of the dark. The angels respond that this is but the first trial. Death's shadow still hangs over them all. The daughter cries out in frustration, telling her mother that she does not care if they die. She will make them pay. She will make all the Jambazi pay for what they have done to them. The Midnight Angels agree. The daughters deserved so much more. She deserved a Wakanda that cherished her. But this is the Wakanda they have. And while the Midnight Angels breathe, they swear to these women, they shall all pay. And in solidarity, the women burn their message into the sand. No one man. That night, the two Midnight Angels, Io and Anika, ponder on where they will go next. It is a big country. A big, unruly country filled with Jambazi and corrupt chieftains, many of them operating under the royal eye. Unfortunately, Io did not come up with a plan on what she would do after she freed Anika. That mattered little. What mattered was that Anika would be free. Anika smiles and raises her arm into the air. Luckily, she has a plan. Her Kimoyo band produces a map of the surrounding territories, and she begins to explain their next move. Meanwhile, at the Ngandan border region, the king infiltrates the encampment where he knows the strange woman in green to be. When T'Challa was a boy, his uncle Sayan ruled Wakanda in his stead. And when he was of age, Sayan stood aside as T'Challa was crowned. He did this happily. Too happily. T'Challa believed his happiness a mask for intrigue and scheme. Only with the crown upon his own head did T'Challa come to understand. Heavy is the head, they say. The proverb does no justice to the weight of the nation, of its people, its history, its traditions. The day after T'Challa became king, Sion offered a single piece of wisdom. Power lies not in what a king does, but in what his subjects believe he might do. This was profound, for it meant that the majesty of kings lay in their mystique, not their might. Every act of might diminished the king, for it diminished his mystique. Might exposed the king's powers, and thus his limits. Might made the king human, breakable. And so, some of T'Challa's might he has kept from the world, allowing legend and myth to fill in the gap. For what the people know not is the true power of kings. T'Challa's uncle, Sion, is dead now, murdered by another king. He loved him, but T'Challa wishes Sion had told him not just of the power of kings, but of the might of the people. T'Challa wishes he'd warned him that they too have secrets. They too hold mysteries. They too possess a power all their own. The king fights through a slew of soldiers. He makes sure to pull his strikes as to not critically injure his own people. However, his instincts get the better of him, and the king hits a soldier with a blast of energy powerful enough to send him flying through the compound and barreling through the wall of a nearby building. Inside, the king finds elders, women, and children. All of them are wearing green. The king also finds the strange woman from before, the witch. The king warns the witch to stay out of his head. She chuckles, for why would she trifle with the king's head when she can so easily devour his heart? There is a school, a university, the Hikima Shule. It is located within the Wakandan city of Bernin, Azaria. That is where a man named Changamir teaches. He quotes the philosopher John Locke. The injury and the crime is equal, whether committed by the wearer of a crown or some petty villain. Great robbers punish the little ones to keep them in their obedience, but the great ones are rewarded with laurels and triumphs because they are too big for the weak hands of justice in this world, and have the power in their possession which should punish offenders. What is my remedy against the robber who so broke into my house? That is the question. How should the weak marshal justice against the powerful? The man from the border, Tetu, arrives. He approaches Changamire using his walking stick and asks the teacher to answer his own question. How does he believe the weak should marshal justice? Seeing Tetu is quite a surprise to Changamire. When Tetu left the university to join the shaman, Changamire did not expect to see the boy so often. Tetu responds, whether it is science or mysticism, the search for knowledge never ends. But is that all Tetu seeks? Changamire has heard tales of Tetu's association with brutal men sworn to the knife. Tetu swears that what he does for his country. He has founded an order that fights to protect Wakandans while their king slaughters them. How long will they let the royals plunder their people? How long will they stand aside and watch? Tetu repeats, "What is my remedy against the robber who so broke into my house?" Back at the Ngandan border, the king is possessed. He sees visions of his sister, Shuri. Her tongue is sharp. She kicks him to the floor and asks him how he could do such a thing, how he could leave her to die. He is no king. He is nothing but a fool. The king tries to convince himself that nothing he sees is real. And yet, everything there matters. Just because a thing is unreal does not make it untrue. This is the truth the king believes. The truth of what he feels whenever he hears his name. The king is cast out by those who come before him. He has lost his way. He has lost his very soul. To get back, the king must see beyond himself, beyond his deepest truths. To get back, the king must see things not as he feels them to be, but as they are. The king realizes that he isn't fighting himself. He is fighting men by the swarm. He was enchanted. The king was wrong. His enemy is not a beguiler, but a revealer. The witch brings out of them all the awful feeling that they have hidden away, and makes them manifest. So, the king knows now that this is who he is. Might, shame, and rage. And now, these people know too. Once each of the men working with the woman in green are dispatched, the king tells the elderly, the women, and the children that they are free. The men who now lay beaten are responsible for crimes against their country. They will be brought to justice. He, their king, will provide for them. The children shoot daggers with their gaze, strong enough to pierce even the armor of the Demisa Sarki. The elders turn their backs, leaving a lone woman to speak up. She tells the king that those men the king had just beaten weren't captors. They were their providers. Once again, the king returns to the necropolis, to his laboratory, hidden away. The king works at his computer, running test after test, and every test is met with failure. How long must he be divided from his own people, from his own country, from his own blood? And how long must he be parted from his sister? Here is what is real. A final act of vengeance by the hand of Thane, the son of Thanos. The Wakandans shackled the Black Order. They escaped and shattered the king's nation. By a counterfeit power, the prisoner became the jailer, and Queen Shuri did not live, and Queen Shuri did not die. No, instead, Queen Shuri meditates and waits. She waits in the vast emptiness of unconsciousness until she is met with a familiar face. A familial face. Her mother's face. Queen Shuri quickly asks the woman who they are. Surely, they are not really Ramonda. The woman smiles and raises her hand. And suddenly, they're home. On the Djalia, the plane of Wakandan memory. There is a piece of land within the country of Wakanda that is known for its lush bounty, the Alkalma Fields. It is there the revolutionary Tetu ventures to do his good work. He remembers a passage he was told not too long before. Once, when I was tree, African sun woke me up, green at dawn. African wind combed the branches of my hair. African rain washed my limbs. Once, when I was tree, flesh came and worshipped at my roots. Flesh came to preserve my voice. Flesh came honoring my limbs. Now, flesh comes with metal teeth, with chopping sticks and fire launchers, and flesh cuts me down and enslaves my limbs to make forts, ships, pews for other gods. Now, flesh laughs at my charred and beaten frame, discarding me in the wind, burning me up in flames. Flesh has grown pale and lazy. Flesh has sinned against the fathers. Now, flesh listens no more to the voice of spirit talking through my limbs. If flesh would listen, I would warn him that the spirits are displeased and are planning what to do with him. But flesh think I am dead, charred and gone. Flesh thinks, by fire he can kill. Thinks that with metal teeth I die. Thinks that all the voices linked from root to limb are silenced. Flesh does not know that he does not give me life, nor can he take it away. That is what the spirits are singing now. It is time that flesh bow down on his knee again. Meanwhile, in the Golden City, Birnin Zana, the capital of Wakanda, the king admits to the Queen Mother, Ramonda, that he underestimated the strange woman in green once again. Or rather, he mistook the nature of the threat. The king does not know what has become of him. He feels blinded by his past, engulfed in a fog of all his defeats, and he keeps seeing his ancestors. He keeps seeing his sister. The departure of Shuri hurt the Queen Mother as well. Shuri was not just Ramonda's daughter. She was her queen as well. And Shuri acted as a queen should, giving herself for her nation. And T'Challa acted beyond what a king should, giving himself for the world. Ramonda watched T'Challa's father and uncle struggle under the same weight. T'Challa may be stronger than he knows, perhaps stronger than all the kings who have come before him. He has faced enemies his forefathers could have scarcely imagined. T'Challa says he is clouded. No, the problem is not his blindness. It is his clarity. But all senses are not equipped to perceive all things. It is the soul, her soul, that should concern him. Ramonda advises T'Challa to forget what he sees, forget what he hears. Instead, he must stalk the soul by controlling his senses, by drawing from them, by enhancing them. The Midnight Angels took the women they rescued to a small village on the northernmost border of Wakanda and the southern border of the Jabari lands. The Jabari lands are known far and wide as the territory of the White Guerrilla Army. The former leader of the army, M'Baku, has passed. Since then, M'Baku's younger brother, Mandela, consolidated power for himself. And Mandela is not happy when he finds out what the Midnight Angels have done to his Jambazi compounds. In retaliation, Mandela orders the village to be ravaged by his guerrilla army. The mother, who was rescued from the Jambazi compound, M'Bali, tells the Midnight Angels that she remembers a time when the Panther watched over them all. Pray to him, and his champions appeared. Where are the champions now? Where is their country? Where is the Panther? The Midnight Angel's strength alone is not enough. They have proved that they can punish the guilty, but they have yet to prove that they can protect the weak. They are not an army. At least, not yet. Within the Djalia, Queen Shuri walks aside, a benevolent spirit masquerading as her mother. The spirit informs Shuri, Wakandans have been told that the might of their country is in its wonderful inventions, in its circuits and weaponry. This is the mastery of things. But Wakanda was great before it had things, and its secrets are older than any vaunted metal. Shuri knows that the spirit is speaking of vibranium and the story of the Great Mound, the fire that fell from the sky and guided Wakandans out of their savage years. But what is savage? The spirit asks. Is she savage? She is from before. Does that not make her a savage? The spirit reveals herself to be the Griot, the shared spirit of all the Wakandan mothers and sisters that came before, and caretaker of the Djalia, the plane of ancient memory. This plane is where everything is saved. All of the triumph and tragedy of Shuri's people. The Griot is the caretaker of all their histories, now lost to the acolytes of machine and the prophets of this metal age. The Griot tells Shuri that she is no longer queen, and it does not matter. Whatever Shuri was before, she has become lost, as were the men who ruled before her. She has forgotten the old ways and has lost her soul. Once, the Black Order sought to forever banish Shuri, but they knew not her destination. They knew nothing of the Djalia. In the Djalia, Griot will arm Shuri, not with the spear, but with the drum that carries the greatest power of all, the power of memory, the power of their song. The king tracks down the strange woman in green, Zenzi, and her Ngandan army to the Ngandan border, southwest of Wakanda. However, it appears the king has underestimated the strength of Zenzi's mysticism once again. Now, the king is blind to his own blood, and battle clarifies. The king's country is dying in front of him. A child is fading before his eyes. The king has secured all his agonies. He has shut away his shame. He has stalked the soul of the deceivers and recovered his very name. But calamity surrounds them. The past overwhelms them, and they are all entangled by their defeats. the king's child is dying in front of him. His country is falling before his eyes. The king strikes down each of the Ngandan soldiers guarding Zenzi one by one. He shows no mercy to the betrayers. Their numbers are many. They clearly outnumber the king. Zenzi attempts to enchant the king once more, but he quickly strikes her with a blast of energy that sends Zenzi flying in the opposite direction. She hits the back of her skull on a nearby tree and slides down to the ground, unconscious. The king then calls on his war dogs, the Hatut Zeraze, to aid him in battle. They strike down out of the trees and dispatch each of the Ngandan soldiers surrounding the king. He was not so foolish as to go without their aid a third time. However, after the last of the revolutionaries are dealt with, the shaman Tetu steps forward. The shaman holds up a gourd and splashes the liquid onto him before administering his face paint. Then, he prepares to fight. Tetu spins his walking stick counterclockwise. It moves as fluid as time itself. Soon after, the roots from the surrounding trees begin to emerge from the ground. They burst forth and entangle the king and his men, holding them in place so that Tetu can look T'Challa in his eyes. Tetu curses the king for accusing them, of all people, of treachery. Him, the same king who plotted with Namor and those who drowned their own people. The same king who schemed while Dr. Doom murdered his uncle and ransomed his mother. The same king who fled while Wakanda burned. The same king who left their queen, his sister, to die alone at the hands of Thanos. Tetu slowly walks over to Zenzi and lifts her up, using his magics. Before he departs, Tetu warns the Orphan King that some of the people remember the old ways. Some of them are more than their birthright. The day is coming when Wakanda will be ruled by Wakandans, and the worms of the earth shall devour all wolves, lions, and leopards, and the era of kings shall end. Near the northern border, Anika races through the jungles of the Jabari lands. The sounds of bullets firing echoes throughout the night. Members of the White Guerrilla Army are right on her tracks, chasing her until she cannot race any longer. They howl into the night, telling Anika, "Run, girl, run from the White Guerrilla Army." She sprints for her life until she finds a cave she can hide in for safety. Or so it seems. The members of the army tell their lord Mandela, the White Guerrilla himself, that they have trapped Anika. Lord Mandela ventures into the cave alone. He tells Anika not to be afraid. Her death will be swift. Lord Mandla is not without mercy. But that is when one of the Midnight Angels appears. She holds her scepter up before Mandla and illuminates the cave, revealing to the Lord a group of women warriors, spears in hand, each awaiting the Lord's next and surely fatal mistake. Once, when I was tree, my ancestors slept in my outstretched arms. African soil nourished my spirit. African wind combed the branches of my hair. Once, when I was tree, African rain washed my limbs. African sun woke me up, green at dawn. The Taifa Nagao convene once again. Hodari, one of the tribal elders, explains their recent operation to neutralize Zenzi the Revealer was a success. The turmoil in the region of the Great Mound has withered. Their operatives report some subversive activity along the Ngandan frontier, but the eastern region has calmed. That is good news. However, the damage done by their incident at the Great Mound was profound. It may be imperceptible at the moment, but it has not vanished. Hodari informs the council that they are tracking down information about the shaman as well. They have his name, Tetu, and they know he was once a pupil at the University Hekima Shule. He was a student of Changamire. The Queen Mother knows that name well. Changamire was a dissident philosopher at Shule, and before that, the hand-picked tutor for King T'Chaka's royal court. Since then, Changamire has been exiled from the Golden City for exoneration against the monarchy. Hodari doesn't have any solid evidence of Changamire aiding Tetu and his revolution, but it may warrant a visit. Also, for weeks, Hodari and his men have heard disturbing rumors out of the north. They lacked confirmation until last night, when an operative in the Crystal Forest sent them footage. M'Baku once held sway there, but after he was killed, his younger brother, Mandla, took up the man-ape mantle and consolidated power. That was the state of things until sometime last month. They do not know what happened or how it happened, but Anika, a renegade captain of the Dora Milaje, sentenced to death for assassination, as well as Io, another one of their adored ones, whom evidently stole two of their armor prototypes and used them to free Anika, are marauding through the country. Hodari's men have been pursuing them for some time, but their forces have been so depleted, their needs so vast, that they lost track of them. In the future, that will prove to be a grave mistake. These renegades overran Mandela's forces, razed the citadel of the Jabari forefathers and convened tribunals. The Jabari tribesmen and several Dora Milaje have sided with Anika and Io. They have begun assembling communes, calling for elections, writing and enforcing laws. The king must understand this is not mere hooliganism. This is a revolution. Later, the Queen Mother, Ramonda, ventures with her royal guard to the learned city of Azaria, where the university Hekima Shule rests, where Changamir resides. And Changamir certainly is not dishonored or even displeased by the Queen Mother's presence. Yet, he cannot escape the feeling that somehow she is displeased with him. The Queen Mother coyishly asks Changamir, can two friends not speak of the days when they were young together? However, Changamir proves to be wise enough to understand that two friends can and should, but presently, they appear to be more than two. The Queen Mother waves her guards away so that she and Changamir can speak in private. Once they leave the room, Changamir demands to know what Ramonda wants. Perhaps he's violated some edict by speaking to his pupils as adults. Is he now to be exiled from Wakanda entirely? Ramonda sighs heavily, but Changamir will not put up with her condescension. He is not one of her pets. He gave up on that years ago, right when he gave up on her. Ramonda pauses for a moment before admitting that once she regretted that. She was young in a strange land and made by Changamir to feel like a woman. And then Ramonda remembered that her destiny was not to be a woman, but to be a queen. There was no choice. Changamir argues that there is never any choice for anyone in Wakanda. Wakanda is science and wonder, all of it achieved by ensuring the royal family's subjects don't ask too many questions. Wakanda has all the intelligence any advanced society would want, and none of the wisdom that any free society needs. Changamir is fully aware that Ramonda is there for information about Tetu. She can feign piousness all she wants, but he will not do the work of her agents for them. He will not enroll in the royal family's national lie. Ramonda takes offense. She and Changamir studied a lot together, and yet, in all their time, they never studied a single nation founded on truth and candor. Wakanda will always be exceptional. The truth is, Changamir didn't condemn the royal family for being mediocre. He blamed them for not being divine. Before Ramonda departs, she tells Changamir that she believed he was many things, but she never thought he was anyone's pet, and warns her old friend to keep his head down. The storm is coming. Who is the shaman named Tetu? It was the questions that brought him to the Shule, and the questions that forced him to leave. Tetu sought answers that mocked the mean physics of men, and ultimately lay in the deeper nature of all living things. But when Tetu searched, he found only charlatans deluding the common man with superstition and hoaxes. Tetu retreated deeper into the wilderness of Wakanda. He followed no man, but took wisdom from root, bark, and earth. He returned with answers, and from the answers, Tetu drew the power to punish the acquisitive, who would take from the little people even their share of daylight if they could. Tetu explains to Io, Anika, and the mother, Mbali, that he wanted a new country, a country that respected every man equally, and respected the earth from which they all hail, and the earth to which they all shall return. He believes he has founded that country, and he comes to offer the midnight angels his admiration. Toppling the Jabari tyrant was a great service to the nation. But more, Tetu offers the women his arms. He fears their strife with the Jabari will not end. War is coming. Io tells the revolutionary that she fears no man. Each day, another of their sisters joins their cause. Each day, they grow stronger. The Midnight Angels were enough for Mandla. They will be enough for the Demisa Sarki, too. Tetu wonders, can the angels be sure it will be the Orphan King alone? What of his allies beyond Wakanda? What of the Wind Rider? What of the Lady of the Light? The people, his people, are not arrayed merely against tyranny, but against a particular dishonor. To massacre their own people, to brazenly assault a camp of women and children. The Orphan King has gone mad. Anika grit her teeth. She is not blind to recent events, nor are they blind to the Demisa Sarki's allies. But they are, as they say, a new country, a new nation. Prudence is required, especially in their allies. The women know who Tetu is. They know of his battles with the king. They think he may well prove to be a true friend to their cause. But, right now, all they share are kind words and a common enemy. That is not yet enough. The next morning, the king and the queen mother sit together for breakfast. The queen mother informs the king that Changamir did not tell her anything. He did not want to, but even if he had wanted to, he had nothing to tell. When the queen mother first came to Wakanda, it was a fashionable time. The entire court was in the thrall of philosophy. It was believed that their advanced society needed to develop an advanced morality. The king knows his father as a warrior, and he was that. But he was also an enlightened man. He invited the seers into the court. His father believed in a new age, but the constant war killed his faith, and the king should know what happened from there. What the Queen Mother will say is that Changamire was the most honorable of the lot. He was a tutor to the Queen Mother personally in Wakandan philosophy and its possible evolution. Granted, they have not been in constant contact since the old days, but Changamire is not a revolutionary. He renounced violence. And yet, here we are, the king remarks. He thanks the Queen Mother for her intelligence, and then asks her for her counsel. In truth, the Queen Mother admits that she does not think the king's problem is an old philosopher, and she does not think his problem is the renegade Dora Milaje. His problem is the people. What the king's father understood, but Changamire never did, was that the first rule of any government was to safeguard its people. The king snaps back that he has failed to do just that. Doom, Namor, the Black Order, and threats that are not even known to the people. The Queen Mother continues her point. What Changamire understood, and the king's father ultimately did not, is that protection is not enough. Force is not enough. She asks, to what end does all the king's weaponry angle them? What are they really protecting? The people's lives are not enough. What do their lives mean? The king believes that he is protecting their heritage, their traditions. But the Queen Mother argues that he is smarter than that. The people know that story well. He is going to have to give them more. The king sighs out that he has given everything. He has nothing left to give. The Queen Mother disagrees. She states the king has never given willingly. He feels the weight of the crown, but he has never felt the great honor of being king. His people are a burden to him, and he has never let them forget this. The king says he has given it all, but he is wrong. He has never truly given himself to his country. What the king should do, what the king needs to do, is go out and be with the people. He needs to give those who love him something more than recitation and ceremony. By giving that which all great kings ultimately offer: inspiration. Zenzi the Revealer has been in a coma since her last altercation with the Panther. But she has not been without aid. Tetu has been watching over her, healing her slowly with his mysticism. He uses the power of nature itself to breathe life back into Zenzi and lift her spirit back into the land of the awakened. She opens her eyes and for a moment lays there, smiling softly at Tetu. He smiles back. He is pleased with his work. And Zenzi will be of much aid in the time to come. Tetu leaves the room and enters another. In this room sits a man with a black suit. His name is Ezekiel Stain, son of Obadiah Stain, the ironmonger. And it seems to Zeke that Tetu and the revolution are in need of some assistance. He is well aware of Zenzi's importance to Tetu's movement, as well as how much the revolutionary was depending on the aid of the Midnight Angels. He is also aware that the king is making a public appearance, most likely to gloat over his recent victories. Without a major upgrade, the king is going to draw and corner Tetu's revolution. And then he'll put Tetu's head on a pike. Tetu tells Zeke he doesn't care. It is not fear of his death that brings his revolution together. It is fear of losing, fear of tyranny extending itself unchallenged even one more day. A mischievous grin spreads on Zeke's face. Tetu claims he wants a revolution, but is he ready for the future it brings? Zeke is well aware of what is to come. There will be panic in the streets, fire in the sky, casualties, and agony. The king, for the first time in a long time, maybe even longer than he can remember, spent the day amongst the people. He shook hands. He waved. He smiled and laughed. And for a moment, he was happy. And then, out of nowhere, an explosion went off in the distance. And then, another. And then came the screams of the people. And then the crying. And the pleading. And then there was another explosion. This one was close. Too close. The Queen Mother tried to escape but was caught in the crossfire. And, without realizing, the king too was screaming and crying and pleading. The casualties were extensive, both the injured and the dead. If not for the shielding on the king's vibranium suit, the Queen Mother would have been among them. Her injuries are extensive, but she will live. The king tells his council to make sure they listen well. There will be no more discourse, no more deliberation, no more excuses, no more mercy. They know what this is. It is war, and war is their nation's trade. It has been so for generations. They are Wakanda. They will not be terrorized. They are terror itself.